Morning. You guys ready? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this. Is it on? Can you hear me? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Workshop. Eddie's that noise. It is Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. It's 9 a.m. We're in the John Netz Community Wing of City Hall. Please silence all your devices. And if you would, I'm calling this meeting to order. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence. I was trying to think if we have anybody we need to pray for, but short moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. Allison, if you could call the roll, please. Here.
Present.
Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. We'll begin with our first round of public participation. We'll allot 30 minutes for this. Please remember the rules of the procedures that are in the agenda. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Duarte.
Good morning, Jeannie Duarte. By now, you all have received packets of information from me containing a few matters. Our council seat, District 4, is seated by an unauthorized appointee. His appointment expired November 5th, 2024, per the charter. Side by side, 2018 and 2024, both versions expire the appointment at the next scheduled election, which was November 5th, 2024. I attend charter review meetings. Most suggestions lead us back to restoring the language of the charter to prior to the 2018 changes. Why is this important? Last year's attempt by our current vice mayor and council to remove provision 3E from our charter, had they succeeded, it would have removed electors' right to vote on issues by referendum, removed the spending cap, removed the 36-month repayment deadline, and removed restrictions on the city to enter into public-private partnerships. I have ordinances and a recent public-private partnership guideline showing they are already doing that, even though the electors voted it no. Also, from the Florida Department of Health, you've all received a chart of data taken from the Florida Department of Health showing in red that Flagler County outnumbers other nearby counties and other similar counties that have the same population in various disease rates. We're outnumbering them, y'all. I still have not gotten the copies of the boil water reports that I've asked for or the chemical change alerts. Now it went from they're wanting to charge me over $400 to now they want to charge like $60. That's a big difference. But these are public records and people are getting sick. We need these. I personally double filter and boil my water. My water is slippery, sticky, greenish yellow, and smells like bleach. But did you know that filtering doesn't remove all bacteria and boiling actually intensifies some chemicals? I am a fitness nutrition specialist by trade. I do it for free and for fun. Knowing the water conditions and the reclaimed water being used on irrigation crops, my conscience is in turmoil. People are getting sick. People are dying. My neighbor recently died of cancer. We need transparency, responsibility, accountability, consistency, and done ethically here in Palm Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Ms. Chantel.
Good morning, Chantal Pradinger. I agree with everything she said, but I'm not going to say it again. I'm going to talk about something else that I brought previously. It's time to revisit the parking issue in the swells overnight. Yes, I'm here again for it. I was told it was to allow the mosquito treatment, so I asked Mike Martin about it, and he said that the truck goes in the middle of the street and it sprays in the air. It doesn't spray in the swell. So, again, if it's not a city control issue, I don't know what it is. We're talking about those swells that we, the people, have to more take care of. It's on our own property. Please do what's right. Revisit that rule. Remove that abusive restriction. We, the people, can use our own judgment as to when not to park on the swells after rain. Don't treat us as toddlers. Now, I still have 1 minute. I want a conversation with you. I want your feedback now. That's still my time. I want to hear from you.
Ms. Chantel, we do public comments, then we follow up after all the public.
It's still my time. I still have, I've not used 30.
You can stand there for 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're not going to respond until after all public comments are done.
All right. So you can't expect people to show up here for hours at a time, be involved with you if you don't have real conversations with them.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any quick follow-ups? You got anything, City Manager?
I'll follow up with Ms. Chantel on that, sir.
Thank you, man. Thank you, sir. Any other council members? Okay, thank you. We're going to move along to, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gambaro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Duarte, we're really super proud that you dedicate time and you're active in our community and active in our proceedings. But on the matter that you continue to bring up, it has been clearly settled by a court. And I will tell you that this council is focused on moving forward in a positive way and in a positive nature to take care of the residents' business. And that's our focus going
Sir,
forward.
I agree with you to a point. It was settled.
Ms. Duarte.
By your appointment.
Ms.
For you to
Duarte.
continue sitting is not.
Mr. Duarte, take a seat, please.
Continue sitting is not.
Mr. Mayor, just a friendly reminder, if a resident in the galley is not following our procedures, this council has full authority to ask them to leave and have our deputy escort them out of the building.
Thank you, sir. Go on.
I just was saying that we're looking forward to moving in a positive direction as a team to take care of our residents' business and in a positive way to drive positive solutions. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Quick follow-up. We are getting ready to talk about debt service for the city, and we're about to invest close to $300 million in water quality within this city. So to keep beating that dead horse really doesn't do us any justice to the residents of this city. So we're going to move along. Any further follow-ups? Mr. Duarte, Commander, We're going to move on to presentations. First presentation is an update on the current debt market and overview of the financial plan for the Series 2026 utility bonds. Good morning, Helena.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Helena Alves, Finance Director. I'm here with Joe Tyndall from Hilltop Securities. And this morning, we're going to go over the market update and also an overview of the utility system refunding and revenue bonds financing plan. And Brian will follow us with the CIP that will be supported by these bonds.
Thank you, Helena. Good morning. My name is Joel Tyndall with Hilltop Securities. We serve as a financial advisor to the city. So in front of you, you have a presentation.
Could you pull the mic closer or speak up, sir, for the residents at home? Be able to hear you?
Is that better? Is this better? Thank you.
Not really. Is the mic on, Helena?
It is.
I'll speak up a little bit more.
There you go.
Thank you.
You got to be closer to the mic.
Okay. So this, just to get into the market update, this slide gives you some history of various interest rates and indices, both in the taxable and tax-exempt market since 2015. And you can see interest rates have kind of moved up and down over this time period. Post-COVID and that 2020, 2021 time period, rates, as most people know, dropped pretty significantly. You saw pretty low mortgage rates, et cetera. But in the wake of inflation picking up post-COVID, you can see interest rates have started to increase and have kind of remained certainly higher than that point in time since that point. Towards the end of the chart on the right, I'll just point out on the yellow line, that's a short-term interest rate. So you can see that started to decline as the Federal Reserve has started to lower the federal funds rate or the federal funds target in the last year or two. This chart just gives a history of the 20-year MMD. MMD is a benchmark in the municipal tax-exempt bond market. And this is a 20-year maturity, but it just shows you some of the history with some of the events that have occurred since 2021 and how that's potentially impacted some of the rates. So you can see, again, we're still a little bit on the upper end over this time horizon, particularly the post-COVID lows. But the rates have ticked down a little bit just more recently. This next slide, these are two indices in the municipal market, the bond buyer indices, both general obligation, GO, as well as revenue bonds. This gives some history of these two indices since 2015, so roughly 10 years, and the dotted line on each one of those provides the average. So we're above the average during this time frame currently. Rates have come down a little bit more recently, but we're kind of still above that average during this 15-year period. Now, if we zoom out on this next slide for a longer time horizon, so if we go back to the 1990s, this shows you both the more current MMD benchmark yields for 1 through 30 maturities in the blue line. And then you can see in the red line, that's the average for each one of those maturities during that same time horizon. So if you look back further, we're for the most part kind of in that average range. And then the gray bars show you the full range of each one of those yields for years 1 through 30 during that time horizon. So if you focus kind of more on more recent history, rates do seem higher, but if you kind of zoom out and look further back, going back to the 90s, we're kind of in the average, in the middle range, and slightly lower, as you can see in certain years on the front end. So turning to the utility bond financing itself, earlier this year, Council approved rate increases needed to support the utilities capital improvement program, including an initial bond issuance of approximately $280 million. The proposed issuance is expected to be repaid over approximately 30 years, and we're currently anticipating issuance or closing and funding in April of 2026. In addition to the new borrowing for capital, the city also has approximately $49 million of outstanding taxable utility system bonds outstanding that may present a potential refunding opportunity or savings opportunity if combined with the new borrowing for capital projects. The current bonds have interest rates outstanding from 1.08 to roughly 2.25 and mature through 2036. They were originally issued as taxable bonds due to the limitations on refunding at the time those were issued, but they were issued to refund for savings purposes. Combining the planned new money issuance along with the refunding of these 2021 bonds may provide the city savings through an escrow to maturity refunding structure, whereby you borrow money now to refinance it, deposit it in an escrow account, and reinvest those proceeds over the remaining term of those bonds through 2036. So you'll earn money on the investment, and that money, along with the original proceeds deposited, will be used to repay those 2021 bonds through their maturity. And based on market conditions as of January 5th, by combining this refunding or refinancing with the new money bonds, the savings was estimated to be approximately $1.7 million on a present value basis, which equates to about 3.4% of the principal or par amount of bonds refunded. This refunding, in terms of our financing plan, it's an option, so if market conditions by the time we get to market make sense to execute on the refunding, it would be included. However, if it doesn't save the city money and doesn't make economic sense, we'll be able to peel that out and just proceed with the new money. The 2026 bonds will be payable and secured by pledge revenues, which primarily consist of the net revenues of the utility system. So that's the primary pledge here for the 2026 bonds. Turning to the following page, this provides a kind of a financial snapshot, summary level of what we're anticipating here for the 2026 utility bonds. So up on the top right, you can see the anticipated sources and uses of funds for both the new money portion of the bonds as well as the refunding or refinancing portion of the bonds. So in total, there's about, we're estimating as of January 5th, just over $300 million of principal amount. We anticipate premium being generated at the time of sale on the bonds. So total sources of approximately $330 million is what we're anticipating. And as you can see on the uses of funds, this includes approximately $283 million of project proceeds for the utility system, along with that refunding escrow deposit that I mentioned briefly earlier and closing costs. Down on the bottom left, you can see graphically what we anticipate for the debt service on the utility system. So this includes both existing parity bonds, a 2016 note. It includes the refunding, assuming that makes sense at the time of sale. And it also includes the debt service on the new money for the 2026 bonds and subordinate debt service, which primarily consists of SRF loans as well as an additional bank loan. But the refunding itself is structured to match the same maturity, so essentially generate annual savings each year only through the current maturity in 2036. The new money is structured at over approximately 30 years of repayment, interest only through fiscal 2028, and then for the next 4 to 5 years after that, it's structured to cap debt service at approximately $30 million per year when looking at the overall debt profile. Moving to the bottom right, focusing on the borrowing cost, the all-in true interest cost, or all-in TIC. You can see for the new money portion, as of January 5th, we're estimating approximately 4.5% all-in borrowing cost. On the refunding portion, since that's a much shorter piece, it only goes out to 2036, estimated all-in TIC of approximately 2.9%, and then on a blended basis, approximately 4.44%. That results in total interest cost for both the refunding and new money of approximately $276 million, total debt service of approximately $582 million. And then on the refunding itself, you can see down on the bottom right the estimated savings, again, based on January 5th market conditions. So you're looking at annual savings from 2026 through 2036 of approximately $188,000. That equates to about $1.7 million of net present value savings, or 3.46% on a percentage of par basis. When we look at refundings, a lot of times we kind of will use a general range. 3 to 5% PV savings is usually a pretty good range for refinancing. This is a little more unique situation where the refinancing makes sense because you're also issuing the new money at the same time. Not only are there some economies of scale in terms of closing costs when you do that, but also because of how the debt is structured with the new money, you're able to kind of reinvest the proceeds in the escrow at a higher interest rate than you would have otherwise been able to under tax rules. So going to the schedule, on the left-hand side, you can see we've already started working with the financing team to prepare bond documentation for the financing. Both the engineering and financial feasibility consultants have already been preparing their reports that would be included along with the offering document. And we've also obtained and coordinated related service providers, which include the underwriters, which would ultimately purchase the bonds for resale to investors, as well as other providers such as the paying agent, verification agent, and others. And on the right, you can see the various parties that have been involved in the financing. January 20th, next week, you will be presented with the authorizing bond resolution. So that will provide authorization of the bonds subject to meeting certain parameters when they're ultimately sold in the market. And assuming approval of that resolution, we would coordinate and work with the financing team to finalize the offering document, reports or feasibility and consulting engineers reports that are ultimately used to market to investors. We would also apply and obtain bond credit ratings on the bonds. And ultimately, we would be looking to go to market and then close the bonds, preliminarily anticipated for a March-April timeframe for actually going to market. That's the point when the bond sale is the point when you lock in the interest rates. The bond closing is the date where the proceeds actually are funded or move to you, which is usually 2 to 3 weeks after you lock in the interest rates. Going to the right, again, we have numerous parties involved, from bond counsel, disclosure counsel, ourselves as the municipal advisor. We have the bond underwriters, consulting engineer, feasibility consultant, all the way down to the rating agencies, and then bond insurance. That's to be determined. That will depend on whether it makes economic sense to insure the bonds, because you pay a premium for a bond insurance policy, but that's got to save you you got to save more money than you're paying for the premium to make it make economic sense. So that's to be determined at a later point in time. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone on the council have any follow-ups? Vice Mayor?
Yes, I have some questions. Thank you, Mayor. Can you please go to the slide with the 4 different sections you were talking about? Yes, this one. Thank you. If you could help me understand, what is the total amount that we are anticipating spending on these capital improvement projects? Because I see this I'm trying to figure out how this refunding portion is coming into play and how we're expending that money.
So the Up on the top right, the sources and uses. Down on the uses side, the project proceeds, the amount that you would receive to be able to be used to spend on capital projects would be the $283 million. The amount deposited to escrow, that would be set aside in an escrow account and purely used to pay the old bonds. So you would not have access to those funds. So it's just the $283 million plus closing costs that you would receive.
So is that money that we're placing into escrow, is that money that we did not previously anticipate being able to utilize?
The 45 million or so, that would be funded from the new bonds. So right now it doesn't exist. But basically, it's essentially like refinancing. So you're taking out new debt to pay off old debt is essentially what you're doing.
Okay,
With the savings.
right. So I guess what I'm trying to get down to is, are we infusing our ability, or are we infusing our funds with more ability to pay back previous debt by this refinance?
I guess from a financing standpoint, you're getting rid of old debt and you're replacing it with new debt is essentially what you're doing. You won't have access to those proceeds. Those will be placed in escrow and the old bondholders will be secured by those proceeds. But you're just replacing old debt with new debt, and the new debt will have a lower payment essentially than your existing debt that you have right now.
So can this help with regard, because we do projections obviously for rates and what we need to set the rates at in order to pay for debt. Can this help when looking at the future, what we set our rates at? Can it help to either stabilize them or make sure we're not having to increase them by the CPI in the future?
It certainly will help with the cost side of the equation. So we're anticipating, at least based on rates as of January 5th, it's a savings of just under $200,000 a year for the next 11 years. So that's a reduction of the expense side. So as you look at the revenue side and what you need to support, your expenses will be about $200,000 less a year.
So we haven't looked at this money and said, oh, we've got, more money coming in so we can spend more money. That's not the way we've treated these dollars. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. And the other piece I'll add to that is these are based on current market conditions. So as we actually get closer to the time of bond sale, it's possible that the refunding doesn't make sense. And if that was the case, that would not be included at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir, go right ahead.
Just real simple questions. As far as refinancing in the future, we established the rates at the beginning. And those rates, we can't go up at that point, is that correct?
Correct.
But in the future, if rates go down, we could refinancing, but that special deal where you're talking about where we're taking the existing bonding and using it to lower the rates for the first, would you say first 4 or 5 years?
About 11 years through 2036.
During that first period, can we refinance the overall loan?
So the new bonds, we're anticipating a call feature of October 2035. So in the municipal market, typically you see about a 10-year par call where you don't have the right to call the bonds early until that 10-year call. Because these are 30-year bonds, you'll have the opportunity to refinance at some point in time, but it may not be for a little while.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sir, thank you for being here this morning. Really important analysis to walk through. To the Vice Mayor's question on, and I see where she's going on opportunity to maybe lower utility rates for our residents down the road. But the refinancing, if you would, the refunding is for old debt. Let's say part of the $80 million that we initially spent, the city spent to purchase the utility department. But it's going to go into an escrow where we can't touch it because it's at a lower rate, so we can pay that down potentially faster because of the lower rate. But that doesn't. But the rest of these funds is targeted for our capital projects, right? Not necessarily for operational costs as we go forward. And I think that's an important distinction as we look at where we can find areas to maybe lower utility rates for our residents. You know, is it in the operational costs, or is it in the or through this capital expenditure that we're looking at? That's my question to you.
And I know there'll be a presentation on the capital here shortly, but obviously anything that helps reduce the expenses is going to not require as much revenue to be generated. So the refinancing helps. Obviously, O&M expenses and capital projects all require some level of expenditure. So the refinancing plays a small part in reducing the expenditures, but there's certainly a lot of capital that the utility needs.
Okay, so you're saying this council has potentially two levers to pull as we consider, the outlook, in the future. But it sounds like it's mainly the operational lever where we can adjust some of those cost savings as we go further down the road.
And I think Brian will be able to speak more to the overall expenses of the utility side, including the capital, but from my standpoint, we're focused on the debt, and the debt piece, we're reducing that a little bit. So that does help, but it's a large utility system, so.
Yeah, okay. Well, the good news is that we potentially may have options down the road.
Yep.
We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else from the council? Yes, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just had a quick question to maybe try to clarify in terms of the refunding. So in terms of the cost of issuance, would this refunding make sense as a standalone item?
So part of the reason why this refunding makes sense is because it's combined with the new money. And the reason why that is if you look on this chart right here, just on the refunding side, it's got an all-in TIC of about 2.9% that you're seeing right there. And
I guess my main question, though, is that if we were to do this refunding as a standalone item, there would be other fixed costs for the cost of issuance, whereas when doing it in combination with this bond issuance for capital improvement, we have just some variable costs added to do the refunding. So in terms of a house mortgage, you're talking about your closing costs. You're only adding a slight addition to the closing costs to refinance versus, if you were doing it by yourself, it would cost a lot more to do this refunding. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. So there's two pieces. One is, like you said, there's economies of scale with closing cost. So a standalone refunding versus combining it with this would have higher proportional closing expense. The other kind of important piece on this really is the fact when you look at the all-in TIC on the refunding, it's about 2.9%. What we're looking at is to reinvest those funds. You're essentially borrowing at 2.9% and you're reinvesting it at our estimate was about 3.8%. So almost 1% higher than the borrowing cost. Now, if you did it on a standalone basis, because they're tax-exempt bonds, you would not be able to do that. You'd be limited to essentially the 2.9%.
So the premise wouldn't even exist as a standalone issuance.
Correct.
But even if it was, it probably wouldn't make sense because of the cost of issuance.
The cost of issuance would be more, so that would negatively impact.
It would be a marginal gain for all the effort that's put in by staff and everybody else.
If at all.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to try to point that out and for the residents. And so this is kind of a separate thing, an opportunity to save a little bit of money. It's not a huge amount of money, but over 11 years, it equals several $1 million. So good savings there.
Anything else from the council? Nothing from the council. We'll open it up for public comment. Anyone have any public comment? Anyone versed in servicing over $300 million in debt? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any follow-ups? Any final follow-ups? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Helena. And now we'll move on to
Thank
the
you.
second presentation, the utility five-year capital improvement plan. Brian, please. I don't think you'll have any problems hearing Brian because he's got a deep voice.
Well, let's make sure I'm close to the mic. Good morning, council and members of the public. Here to present the five-year CIP presentation to follow up, to support background information in the bond deal, and maybe, a couple times a year to talk about the CIP here with you. On the strategic action plan that the utility was created last year, there was three priorities that really want to focus on related to CIP. They're all 6, 7 priorities are relevant to this, but most especially the regulatory and requirements and product quality. A lot of investment into that. The whole financial stewardship, just like Carlina and Joel came up here. How are we, borrowing money most efficiently, and council brought up how are we spending money most efficiently. Because a dollar's a dollar, whether it's an O&M dollar or capital dollar, it's the customer's rates that support it. And certainly time is different if it's capital, it's paid often over 30 years on debt, or it's paid on current year revenues, so we'll go through that a little bit, or O&M. So anytime we can save $1 or $200,000 savers, is a great opportunity that the finance team brought to the table. And then mostly the infrastructure plan and improvements, that's what a CIP is all about. We'll talk about our plans, our projects, and our people, and how they all interrelate. About 10 slides we'll go. First, the background, council is certainly aware of our system, but part of the official statement is the background, and for the public, we have a water system that is founded with 3 water treatment plants of different generations. The oldest one is approximately 50 years old, Water Plant 1. You'll see there's a lot of investment on several slides in that. Water Plant 2 and Water Plant 3 are very complex plants. They're membrane plants, whether you want to call it low pressure RO, what have you. We have concentrate to deal with. The team does a great job running those plants in this part of Florida. The water isn't just so pristine that you just pull it out and aerate and chlorinate it. You have to treat the water with these membranes to get out the chlorides and different type of products. Total cement and solid. So it's costly to run those. In addition, we have 67 production wells, various in size. They may go down from 100 gallons a minute to 500 or 600 gallons. In Orlando or north of us, you often find wells that are 1,200 or 1,500 gallons a minute, or even 2,500 gallons. So we have a lot of wells for a 10, 11 million gallon a day system. 7 storage tanks. We have a new one last year that went online about 6 months ago. Over 800 miles of water mains, pretty significant. 4,000 fire hydrants. Make sure Chief Barry Hill and team have what they need whenever they need it. And over 57,000 revenue. On the wastewater side, 2 main plants. Wastewater Plant 1, which is the most significant part of that bond is supporting that plant expansion from 6.83 million gallons a day, 10.83, that 4 MGD expansions needed for capacity. It's needed to comply with the consent order. In addition to wastewater plant 2, that the second edition going from 2 MG to 4 MG went online 6-8 months ago. Took several years for that to happen, but so we have an ample capacity at that plant. It's very important to the system. The also at the bottom is effluent management, very important. Our RIBs or spray fields. Most of the wastewater is treated to reclaim quality, where we deliver it to wholesale to different places for irrigation. And that's the first priority that we want to send it. But at times we have to send it to the RIBs or spray fields, let that naturally percolate around. We have 181 pump stations. Thinking about that number again, depending on how we define costs, I think I brought it up a couple times, and you value that. It's $75 million. Whether that's replacement cost, whether it's exact or not, it's a significant investment in pump stations. Keep those up and replace them. And then we have 18,000 pet tanks. So we have the 5-year CIP supports all this work. It supports the expansion, like I mentioned. We're going to have a wastewater master plan. effluent management plan, some R&R in the PEP tanks. We'll look at an inflow and infiltration, INI, it's called in industry, initial assessments, initial projects. It is not a massive program that I envision would happen the next decade. But this will set us up, study where are the parts where we can basically lower leakage into the system at a cost more effective than build a new plant. So this helps start that, but we have the other projects that we need to utilize the major funds, and we need to study that before we spend. The plans, the projects, and the people, kind of highlighted a little bit before. So water master plan is essential. That's going out for RFP here in several weeks. Team's working on it as we speak. Seen it last night. That's really the raw water supply. We're gonna have brackish wells introduced, alternative water supply. That is certainly favorable from the aquifer long-term protection. Use some of that brackish water. It's more difficult to treat. It's more costly, more metallurgy, the membranes, everything about it.
Brian,
Go ahead.
can you define brackish water for us, since there seems to be some debate in the past about this?
Okay, I gotta go back to, I have to work through that for my head. I think 10,000 parts per million is when early in my career, St. John's River. That is kind of getting closer.
Of salt.
That's closer to salt,
Yep.
you know. 3,000 parts per million or 1,000 parts per million, I've felt that in Virginia. That is certainly brackish water. When you start getting into the minutia of 650 or 350, when you get over 350 parts per million of chlorides, that's a concern. But I think about 1,000 is probably a rough number, the magnitude of 1,000 versus 10,000.
So just for clarity, it's somewhere between fresh water and salt water.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Can I ask a question too while we're on this subject? So I know probably over the past 2 years, there's been a lot of discussion about further use or access to brackish water, which we know is more expensive to treat. In doing the master plan, will there be a sufficient analysis on whether or not we should be using resources to access more brackish water, or whether there should be resources you put towards other water sources? I know we have issues. I said this, I think, last week. We've got water supply issues in the state, aquifer issues. I just want to make sure, if we know that brackish water, and from my understanding, it's significantly more expensive. It's not a little bit more expensive to treat. Should we be making sure prior to saying, hey, let's go for more brackish water, brackish water, brackish water? And by the way, it's not just us. This is a statewide problem. Are there other ways to not have to tap into brackish water as much? Are we sufficiently analyzing that rather than just saying, well, we can just tap into brackish water?
I think cheapest supply source is conservation. So that's what we need to do. I have worked personally on an integrated water resource plan, which is more than just a master plan. It's looking at the whole one water concept in the industry. Typically in that, and more recently, go 50 miles north, the answer to that is brackish is cheaper than total aquifer recharge. It is certainly more expensive than fresh water that you might be fortunate enough in Orlando or Jacksonville. Just aerate, typically aerate, chlorinate, and then do some extra treatment. The one thing, it is certainly a lot more money than freshwater treatment, but we here in Palm Coast, water plant 2 and 3 already have membrane. So brackish water treatment, we plan on using the membrane plant in water plant, I always got to think of the order of it, water plant 3, the one on the north side. That is going to use the supply for brackish. Now, will those membranes might need to be adjusted over time?
Yeah,
But that
they are.
plant's pretty set up to be a brackish water plant already because we're using it for membrane.
The current membranes, though, do they need for the technology that we're using for, does that all need to be updated?
We're looking at right now going from 3 to 4 MGD. And, if I had Pete right here or further along in the master plan, is that exact membrane going to be the one that gets replaced and reused over the decades on brackish? That could change over time, but I don't believe that that's a material, well, anything's material in these type of membranes, but I don't think that's change of technologies, that we may use a different membrane, but we'll get the experts when that membrane.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up with some of those questions. So in terms of our are our cups based on the different aquifers, or are they overall cups?
Here, they are based on the different aquifers. We get superficial.
Right.
We have an aquifer.
So those are separate cups
You
for
know,
each
I,
one.
You know, in several months, I'll be able to answer that 100% certainty.
Okay.
I know when Pete and I and Ryan went down to the management district 2-3 months ago, you know, they do know our system, that we're actually they're gonna come down here and put their eyes on. It's been a few years. And they know that the plant on the south, water plant 2, is using, you know, a certain water supply, and water plant 1 is different. So they know that. Whether it's consolidated or together, I believe it's consolidated, but each plant there's like 50 provisions in the cup, and each of those plants has provisions. So on the format of whether it's consolidated or not, that was a big thing 20 years ago in my prior life, 2012. There's provisions in that cup, dozens of them, and certain have more teeth in it in our system that we have to really manage, and some are more general. So I think how we manage it individually by each.
And then in terms of our plants, actual capacity versus cups, is there still room for growth in those cups in order to produce more water from the existing plants and well fields, assuming a growth of well fields?
When the master plan will put that off succinctly, but we do not have much capacity in our plants right now.
So if we had 20 more wells tomorrow, we couldn't process more water, and the cup was just automatically approved, we couldn't produce more water from our plants?
We could. We've got a 15% margin, which is tight here. I've lived on a lot smaller margins. I could put that number out. We had a South Dakota book north 50.23 million gallons a day patients for the public. And we were, you know, within 100,000 gallons, I think, 1 year under certain conditions. You don't want to be that tight.
Yeah, no, and it's just to I think the Vice Mayor's point that developing, or at least having a plan or an evaluation of developing the highest ROI investments first, right? So, you know, the things that produce more, cost less money first over, you know, potentially exploring that. And I know there's some timeline issues with Brackish and developing that cup in order to maintain it. Otherwise, we lose it. I think to the same point, don't want to throw more money at something just to develop it rather than explore, you know, the resources that we do have, the ability to expand that are cheaper.
One of the things I've seen that I'm going to study is, you know, is it, and we'll look at it, have the experts, engineers, and cost benefit analysis is, do you drill for larger gallons a minute versus a lot of small wells? And what's the cost benefit between, you know, 2 wells of 500 gallons a minute versus 5 wells at 200 gallons? Numbers right. So we're looking at all that, and we're going to develop the master plan. I actually today, this morning, and I've been thinking about it too, is we created a program one time called iWater, really looking at the supply of the 67 wells, the transmission line, and the plants, which is really a component of the master plan that might be actually enlarged to get a subcomponent of really studying the wells, and we may look at how we do that.
And I realize there's also, you know, there's resiliency issues as well. Like, do you want to spread this out, have multiple sources of water in case there's a problem with one of them? There's a lot that goes into this, so I understand that too. Just wanted to make sure that as part of this, like the Vice Mayor asked, that we're looking at highest ROI first in terms of, you know, the costs, because we certainly don't want to be in a situation to where we've exhausted all these funds and we still got to build more and we don't have the money for it. Things like that.
For the mayor's help yesterday, kind of kidded me about sometimes talking about finance. So certainly everything that we're going to support is to look at the financial aspect of the side. And that's what we do, because every time.
Well, and to your point too, you said that conservation is by far kind of the best way that we can save money, obviously. And I appreciate this council's consensus in looking at policies or ordinances or resolutions or LDC implementation that we can do in development, because we know that There are certain things in new development that can be done to conserve water. And I really, as we're looking at our LDC, I really want to make sure that we are hyper-focused on that, because particularly as the West is developed, any ways that we can conserve water over the next 30 years, I think will be crucial for the future of our city and our county.
Yep, 100% agree. We will be challenged on having enough reclaimed water one year. And we do probably at moments here, you know. So eventually communities run out of reclaimed water, but that's usually the first thing that's used for irrigation. Okay. And then going forward, I would see a couple of times a year, we'll have some operational reporting that will help show the CUP and the different most important criteria that we're restricted by. And I kind of envision how it develop some slides for the council here to succinctly see which are the drivers of that constricting. Environmental compliance, you certainly handled the CUP for me. I appreciate that. And then the consent order on the wastewater plant are two major elements that are utilizing the funds of both the CIP and the bond directly. And then the hydraulic models, and we'll go to another slide now. We're creating hydraulic models. With the system is fairly complex. We got to make sure we know exactly where the flow is going at all times, at least on paper. And if it's different in operations, then we need to study what's going on, help us pinpoint challenges in the area. Asset management plans. We're going to start developing asset management plans. We have some clay pipe that's maybe 40 years old. That is inherently clay pipe. Typically has inflow in it. It's probably had its lifetime. Certainly the next decade, that probably most of that needs to go. PEP tanks, the 180 pump stations. Pump stations are a challenge. They got generators that don't last 30 years. They have INC equipment that's either technology or from just wear and tear doesn't last to 30, 40 years. Sometimes the wet wells might last 40 or 50 years if coded correctly. But different parts won't make the whole 30-year life. And then we have a significant meter and backflow program here. And then plants. There's so much equipment, rotating equipment in plants. Here's our capital improvements, a 5-year, $599. That was a project list 2 weeks ago today when this went to paper. With the financial feasibility report, it's at $590 right now. And I envision about twice a year we'll have kind of milestone checkpoints, and that's where we're at leading into the budget for next year. We'll be starting at this 5-year, $590. And it should remind everyone that this is a additional year than what you looked at last March. This includes FY30 that wasn't talked about last March, because that was year 6 at that time. And then financial assumptions and plans, the revenue sources, the expenditures, whether it's capital or O&M expenses, and then the rate adjustment that was done last March. All ties together. Just a highlighter item or two on the second slide. The second chart there is really the inflow. To identify inflow and infiltration is a central hydro model to monitor and model what you think is supposed to be doing and put some flow measure in the field and what it is doing and how can you improve the infrastructure to save overall cost there and make it more efficient. And then also, the team did a good job last year of moving about 800,000 gallons a day from the kind of collection area that went to wastewater plant 1 to wastewater plant 2. But they did that kind of on the fly. It wasn't a set, like with the world that I've come from and like to see modeled out. They had to model individually. So we're going to make sure that model is built ahead of time to run various different analysis. Say, can we move 100,000 gallons a day from this plant to that plant or that pump to delay increasing or prevent increasing a pump station? Can we move it to another pump station? So we need that model for multiple reasons, including to save money on utilizing our existing infrastructure to a higher utilization rate that's safe to do.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a quick question. Could you back up just for a second?
Yes,
The inflow portion of this hydraulic modeling, I think it's critically important. So again, 2 days after I got sworn in, right, Hurricane Milton hit, and we had, 17 million gallons of water flowing through our wastewater treatment plant. That wasn't necessarily just the wastewater, and that overcapacity was primarily due to the infiltration of water coming through our PEP tanks and other parts of our system. So for the longevity of our total system, as we look at the investments that we're making, that analysis and a solution to that has to be really looked at and implemented, executed well. And so I'm glad we're taking a look at it because it has real-time implications. From the hey, we got stuff backing up in our bathtub. Well, it's the whole system is overloaded because some of these factors, and so. And to the lift stations and things of that nature, that certainly has to be addressed, even though we've got a pretty good system in place. The fact that we had 24 pump trucks ready to go to help alleviate some of those, downfalls in one or two or a bunch of our different stations at any given time, I think it's a testament to the hard work and the planning that you guys are doing as we continue to improve our systems going forward. So thank you.
That will save, long-term will save operation costs of that tankage too.
Brian, what's our average in terms of millions of gallons for wastewater per day?
Right about 8.5,
Okay,
8.5.
So 8 to 17, so that's
Double.
9 million per day in stormwater going into that, and you could probably even extrapolate further because we asked all residents to reduce and things like that, so we probably weren't even at our average at that time. So 10, 11, $12 million or 12 million gallons worth of stormwater in our system on those storm events. So it is a big deal to fix this.
This is a summary chart of just, annual basis of the projects. The 599 is at 590. We're going to kind of lock that in for the next couple of months. But the projects, cash flows change over times and delays, so it will fluctuate a little bit. And then in the next slide, we'll go into our capital execution rate. Now we got to deliver these projects, and typically in the gap analysis, I think it estimated about 90% of the projects will be, or 9% of the cost will actually be incurred. Some of that because it's delayed. Fortunately, we'll be able to save some money on some projects and what have you. And then about $511 million is in the first 4 years, which kind of lines up with the what the gap analysis. That was the gap analysis number right at that now. The 283 Joel talked about. I think there's a good point. The second bullet under the middle section is when the gap analysis was done, there was 5.25% was the TIC. A couple of weeks ago, meeting with Joel and Helena team, it was 4.8, and I could be staying correct. It's probably worth it. Did I see 4.52 today? Helena, I think was even more favorable, and when that comes time, those interest rates are a lot more favorable, whether 50 or 75 basis points than was in the gap analysis. And that allows the debt service to be lower, allows us to pay our principal sooner, and it's overall good for the system over the long term. We're making focus on grants. Certainly the EQ tank, the $2.375 million EQ tank. There's also some additional, I think it's $2 or $3 million related to wastewater plant 1 expansion that's available. We do have some SRF loans that are zero or low interest rates. So continue to work on that. We're working on how to procure ability to apply for the inflow and infiltration grants and several other ones. Certainly, management district is always supportive of anything to do with alternative resources. And brackish water, while it is more expensive than maybe some existing plants elsewhere, that is an alternative resource, and we need to pursue how can we get additional funding for brackish water, alternative water resource. So that's something we're working on.
Can I stop you, Brian?
Yes.
Where are we with any current grant applications, efforts to get grants, et cetera?
A big improvement about a week ago is that working with procurement, Carl's help, that we can access specialists, technical engineering specialists to help us put in project definitions to apply for FDP grants. And if you asked us a month or two ago when you and I spoke, actually, that wasn't available. There's a CCA process through the engineering in Florida under $35,000. So if you want to go, the analogy I like to go, if you go to your primary care physician or your nurse practitioner, they're generalists, right? And maybe they know a little bit, but if you want to go to ENT, you got to go to cardio, we're going to go directly. So we have a ability to go to a couple different firms under $35,000 to help us put project definitions, quick hits, and to go apply those. And we don't have a whole CIP built out, and we'll go to a slide in a minute, when we really should have a 3 or 5 page description of every project in the CIP, where we could go then hand it to the DEP or the management district. So that's what we're working on right now, to go do that and make sure we meet some deadlines. The management district, I believe, likes things in February, so that's a quick kick we need to do. And then, DEP is more of the summertime, but the sooner the better. So actively working on it.
Does staff have the bandwidth to ensure we are going after every single grant we can for our water?
I think, like I said in the last week, allow the flexibility for staff to help bring in. We have a massive. Give me 3 cents to answer that. This is a large system. Pete likes to call it 100,000 customers, but we have an extra large capital. This is a top 10, 12, 15 capital program in the state. So we need to do our procurement. We need to be able to manage that. So being able to hire specialists. Let's go to the GI doctor. Let's go to the cardio doctor. Let's go NT for people who specialize on water, people specialize on that, to know to do the project definitions to go into it. With that support, small dollars on some consultants, then we have the staff to be able to apply through that, yes. We've moved forward in the last month or two. And then we also have some folks that are more umbrella, work with legislator and folks like yourself. So that's more the technical side. What I want to lead us and for my team, and with a little bit of support from some technical consultants, is more the technical write-ups to apply at the different agencies, and then also do support the council, and we have some outside folks to help us more on the overall state, where are they funding? A year or two ago, there was a lot of funding for Hurricane Milton and Helene. So next year might be funding for something else, and that's something that I believe the council can support, and we'll do the technical side of project definitions submit.
Okay.
I didn't have it 2 months ago, but we have it now, or have access to it at least.
Yeah, listen, and I'll save this for my final comments after the entire presentation. I don't envy you right now, Brian. I think out of all of the hires that we have made in the last several months, you came into the toughest job. So I'll preface my comments with that. I am tired of hearing about our failure to get grants. We have a failure to get grants in this department, period. Whether it's from state appropriations, federal monies. I know we had Representative Fine here, and I haven't heard any updates. If that, obviously we don't have money, but I don't know if we are consistently following up. I don't know if we're being aggressive enough. I don't know. We're missing something. Whether that is hiring a consultant to say, find us money for water, I don't know if that's what that looks like. I don't know if it looks like somebody in-house. I know that this council approved the position for a grant writer, and it was funded, and we don't have one. I'm not happy about that. I want to see some movement in this department because we sat in front of DEP, and we're told that there was specifically going to be money available for I&I. We don't have it, and I haven't seen any grant applications for it. Now, maybe we've made them, and I haven't seen them because we're not in the ins and outs every single day of what happens here in City Hall with staff. If we have, please share it. Let me know. What have the efforts been? I am frustrated. I know you all are frustrated, but I feel like we can fix some frustrations by doing things that we are not doing. And I have a feeling that it could be because in my conversations with you, Brian, you have so many things that you've got on your plate right now. And again, I commend you for coming in, taking this bull by the horns, and trying to do everything that you're doing. I implore you and our new city manager to look at whether or not we are sufficiently staffed and or have consultants to go after grants for grants for water. I feel like we're dropping the ball in this department. Maybe I'm wrong because it's just not something we don't talk about every week in and week out. And if I am wrong, then I want to know what we are doing. I think our residents deserve to know what we're doing because what we're talking about, doesn't exist without our residents. We don't have a CIP without our residents and their money. And I know you appreciate that. We've had this conversation.
It's the customers.
Absolutely. So just like with other funding projects that exist in the city and the county, we oftentimes rely on other funding mechanisms, whether that's hurricane funding, FEMA, bless you, Chief. Whatever it is, we go to other sources first before looking to our local taxpayer. And I don't know that we are sufficiently doing that and taking those actions yet. So that is something that I really want to see an improvement on in this fiscal year. And I look forward to seeing that.
I do too. We'll do it.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump ahead 2 slides and go back to one related to
Mr.
that.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
City Manager, we budgeted as a council, I believe, for a grant position for 6 months. right? And if we got some deadlines that are coming up, you said February, Brian, and also but that's kind of the overall person that helps package everything together for us or find those right opportunities. But I agree with the vice mayor. If we have the person, great. If we haven't, let's get them and let's get them engaged on doing this, because it's also going to coincide with our lobbying efforts and advocacy for the city up in Tallahassee in February when we go up there. So we want to make sure that we're prepared to specifically talk about specific grant opportunities to our state representatives on top of our legislative priorities, but also when we would meet with the different departments. I think the timing is right to make sure that we're well postured and set to move forward with that. Brian, can you go back one slide?
Okay. This one?
Yeah, and so I just for the public's benefit, so water, so under the CIP, 5-year CIP project list, water CIAC, so that those are project fees that are impact fee eligible. Make sure I get it correct, Helene, all right?
Yes.
Did I get it right? Okay. I thought that was important to highlight because we're talking $420 million where in those budget lines where we can accept impact fees that we voted on as a council earlier this year. And as far as federal money coming in, I'm sure there'll be all sorts of assistance coming in January of 27. Thank you.
I'm going to jump ahead and then back on. What's that? What I do?
Can I just add in?
Not yet.
I know we're talking about water here, but in terms of the grant writing and things like that, that also is our roads, right? There's spot grants continuously through FDOT and USDOT. So having a focus on kind of, as Brian mentioned, having project definitions, things that are plug and play, right? So we've got these projects that we have, and tomorrow they say, hey, we've got a grant that has a 30-day window, please apply. We've already got the definition. You can put it into that application immediately. So some of those things, having them grant ready in advance of a grant even existing makes it easier, because some of these things are short window application periods. And by the time you got the application ready, the window's closed. So if you have those things already done in advance and ready to go, it makes it infinitely easier to take advantage, because maybe some of these grants only 6 municipalities apply because they're the only ones that are ready to advance this grant application immediately. So just to add that into the conversation in terms of roads as well, it's a great way to find other sources of funds besides our underfunded roads from the residents, as well as gas tax and things like that. Finding other ways to fund it, because we know we have a shortage of funding for roads specifically, and we need to find ways to fund it.
Yeah, and I will say, I know there's been efforts made to get grants. I mean, I've sat down with Deputy City Manager about this, and I know that we have had grant applications, and there are things that have been kind of in the works, but there are so many. I mean, it would blow the average person's mind to see how many grants there are. And to just say in department per department, hey, let's try to get what we can. I just don't think, based on our costs and knowing that we could be further handcuffed by our revenue sources from the state legislator here in the future, we need to get ahead of this, and we're already behind. So I don't want to dismiss the efforts that have already been made. I just don't think that we've really committed enough to this specific possible resource.
Mr. Mayor, if I could have a moment?
Yes, sir.
And thank you for everybody with the conversation and the support and the consensus of the council on this particular issue. At tomorrow's E-Team, we'll make this a priority for our discussion, and not just water department, but a holistic approach across all city departments. See where we are, where we've been, any stumbling blocks, barriers to success, and we'll jump all over it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brian, you got anything, Councilman Sullivan? Go right ahead, Brian.
Okay, I don't have to skip a slide now. Thank you there for that. The utility focus areas. So back to the plans, projects, and people. And the plans is financial planning, which is all different sources, including grants. But we'll focus on the projects for a minute. There are over 50 active capital improvement line items. But the highlight here is about 15 of them make up about $450 million of the $590 million CIP. So the top part is over $120 million in water plants, wells, supply. Each plant, water plant one is the big one. The sustainability report that was started, a year or so ago, the pilot studies, and it's over $50 million. And one of the things we're going to do is look at, not just increase capacity and sustainability of that plant long term. How do we improve the water quality coming to that, both primary contaminant levels and secondary contaminant levels, aesthetics in addition to that. So certainly modernize that and improve the water quality coming out of it for our customers. Water plant 2 and 3, they're kind of pre-brackish type plants. They're basically membrane plants, and they have upgrades required, and also R&R type work that's significant at those plants. And then the wastewater plant, water plant 1 is going to be, by you count the engineering firms that designed it, whether it's closing in on $200 million when you look at the capitalization of some internal staff and engineering firms, the construction management, the expansion of plant 2. We still have other projects in there, odor control, that's going to have at least $5 million. And then long term, and it's mostly on the out years, but we're going to do a preliminary engineering report early on for wastewater plant 3. So if that's needed for various different reasons, we can jump on it a lot quicker. Because typically a wastewater plant takes 4 or 5 years to design and build, or even longer at times. So we're going to have a preliminary engineering report. Is it the right site? What size? How can you do something in modular so we can spend money as needed? And that's more of in the FY30 where there's significant chunks of money and what you see next decade. But if we need to pull that forward and adjust some projects, we will. And then the wastewater system, the grant applications. And, I probably should recognize I was fortunate enough for 2.5 years work for a medium-sized firm in North Central Florida right before I came here. And I did grants, $22 million involved with the one in Itchituttony, Hamilton County, Fort White, and what's the other big one? Horseshoe Beach. And if you ask me, I had a lot of experience, but you asked me 3 or 4 years ago, did I personally do grants? No, but believe me, I did a lot of grants in 2 or 3 years ago. And so I understand that process, and that's why with the procurement help, we are actively made some movement here in the last week or two to go straight to the ENT, straight to the GI clinic, and straight to the cardio clinic. And we'll get those grant helps in for both water supply and I&I. Meters, we don't want to discount meters. We have about $20 million in this 5-year program for meter replacement. There are revenue, there are cash registers, and meters are complicated nowadays. There's electronic, eventually do some more ANMI that we do. PEP tanks, this is a significant chunk of money, but it's not an overhaul of the entire system of PEP tanks, but this $30 million is to look at a certain amount of R&R replacement of those. And then we're also just, the mock, make sure there's efficient facilities, make sure there's places for people to work and work efficiently. And our utility drive building is, over 50 years old. It's not set up for a system this big. So how to support the mock and facilities for the logistics in this growing city. Really a focus area that we're going to work on is project delivery. And having a capital program this big is new to this city. And like I mentioned, whether you want to call it number 10, 12, 14, I think it's closer to 10 or 12 than it is 14 and 15 largest capital program in the water wastewater in this state. Because you look at Orlando and Tampa, they're broken up by multiple utilities and what have you. So the key is these project definitions early on. What is the scope? And as you move through this project, this is standard project delivery 101 for engineering. Well, I tell you, it's kind of slipped in the last 5 or 7, 8 years. And that's part of us as the utility, the owner of the system, that we got to make sure our consultants follow this path and really lock down at 30% design. I know Mr. Gambaro, we talked a little bit from his background, and Mr. Sullivan from construction. You really got to lock the design down, and that helps make the project smoother, less change orders, the cost estimates are better. So this is something we're really going to focus on. We already have brought some expertise in that to demonstrate what this project should be, working with consultants that we have on board already. A couple of these projects, Lauren had me highlight, where we're at. The raw supply and the wells and the mains, transmission mains, we're at 5% at best at this point. There's a couple projects that might be further along. Water plant 1, sustainability, I say that's at 5% at best to actually make projects, engineer, design them, make the right choices first on the ROIs, and then design them, and then construct them. We're at 5% in this process. On water plant number 3, we're at 6% design, good drawings. We worked on edits, and the firm we're working with has kind of solidified that process even better for us. And was really impressed. They had process flow diagrams, P&IDs that you don't normally see if you don't push the engineering firms on that. So that project will be ready to bid in what's called 6 months. I may be off a couple, but it's past the 6% milestone. One thing we're going to look at, I haven't even called them that yet, but we'll look at maybe we need to increase that straight to 6 MGD because that might give us flexibility on water quality. And we really should have done that before 30%, but since it's kind of a mirrored project, maybe it's an option to do that. But you don't want to change the design after you get to 30% unless it's a really good reason to do it. So, and we're going to get project definitions, so we're ready to apply for grants. And then, of course, wastewater plant 1, we've made the 60% milestone. It's a few months behind schedule. Important on that is get those drawings complete. The better those drawings are, we're also going to bring in some oversight on that to make sure those drawings so the contractor can give us the lowest guaranteed maximum price under that CMAR contract. Having those drawings in detail allows them to be better defined in their construction estimates. So we have some work to do that over the next several months that are big dollars. What some of the team put together for us really good is really 4 steps. The gap study you were here last year, you made that significant investment decision on the rate adjustment, the 8.8 full CPI on going forward. And the long-term planning, this is the 5-year CIP, but we internally need to have a 10-year CIP and to at least know the direction things are going and a financial plan with that. And then an annual budgets. Annual budget is really a snapshot of 1 year. So today, the CIP is more of a 5-year, but you really should be looking at 10. We're going to further solidify that process. The debt management that Joel and Helena went through, that's what you got debt surgeons like Joel and team here for, and they did a great job to find the extra savings. There's 3 main metrics that the rating agencies and the bondholders look at: debt service coverage, liquidity, and debt to asset, or some sort of debt to asset metric. We're going to start presenting that as we go forward in our financial models that we're creating, and coverage is typically the most important one. That's and there's some additional bond tests and rate covenant tests that the financial feasibility report make sure in this 5-year plan are there. This is a 1-page slide that kind of takes the Ralph Tellis report that's about this thick on the gap analysis into 1 page into a preliminary FY27 budget. And I think it's important to see, just some key numbers there. Our sales revenues projected or forecast, I'll call it forecast because within a year, about $84 million. Murray last week told me how I had such a mistake here, and he told me it was $86 million. I said, that's a good mistake, Murray. So actually, we're a little bit conservative there. So, the revenues coming in there to help for the bond ratings. The capacity revenues, whether they're $8 million, $10 million, or $12 million, whatever comes in on the operating budget goes down, out, transferred to capital budget. So it's kind of a wash on your debt service coverage number. I take that back. It's washed on your budget. It does help your coverage number. And you usually stress test that. What happens if capacity fees go to 0? So you stress test that and make sure, and there's different rate covenant tests in the financial feasibility report that does that, various different metrics on that. We make a little bit of money on interest, especially as there has been some operating cash and capital cash balances. Over time, that number will go down because interest rates are going down on our investments, we think, with the Fed. And also our cash balances should go down as we utilize those fundings for the CIP and operations. So you get a net revenue. Net revenue is the key figure in cash-based municipal utility. If you're IOU, they do a, they call them, what's it called? Why did I miss it today? There's 2 different ways you do rates, but on municipal utilities, cash basis, running these numbers. And then basically, if you're an IOU, they teach depreciation in, so they have a different factor related to that. And our debt service. So this is a key number. When we looked at this a couple of weeks ago, if you just took this levelized debt service on 283, that'd be about a $17 million a year at 4.8%. The next number I'm gonna make up, at 5.25, that might have been 18 million, would have been higher, right? So interest rates have come down since when the council made that tough decision last year. So there's an opportunity to say, how can we make sure that this bond that here is gonna, pay principal sooner? So Joel and team have looked at how can you start paying principal on this bond about year 3 or so, when the construction of that major projects are done, the plants are in operation, that we're paying both principal and interest, and that number is going to be about $30 million with the lower interest rates. Take advantage of that, the couple $100,000 refund, and this number will go lower. Now, when that number goes lower, our debt service coverage calc, which is really the 52 divided by 33, it needs to be over 1.5, and the higher it goes, the better financial metric that the rating agencies look at and the bondholders. Will that help us on 1 or 2 basis points? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it's certainly a favorable item to have a higher debt service coverage, and that lower debt service number provides us a stronger financial foundation. There's a pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes transfer over to the general fund, which is pretty typical of municipals. As this system grows, you got to have working capital, so you got to make sure you count for that $1 million for your accounts receivable minus accounts payable, working capital. Sometimes that's missed in utilities, and all of a sudden you become cash short. Our R&R fund, 5% of your revenues is required by the bond covenants, but the council made the policy change up to about 12.5% of the revenues. Long term, you want to make sure that's pretty close to depreciation, give or take on different years. And then the capacity fee goes in and goes out, and at the bottom, that shows a negative $7 million. So that deficit in this first preliminary one-page draft would show that that had to be funded out of reserves. That's in line with the gap analysis. I think the gap analysis had $4.5 million in it. But with Joel's good work and Helena's team, getting that 33 to 30 with lower interest rates, with me being too conservative on the revenues, we're gonna be closer to break even this year, and which is good because that's what you want the system to be, making sure you're breaking even, accounting for depreciation and what have you. And we'll look at a 5-year plan, how that targets with the metrics, and just wanted to kind of have that snapshot. It is cost recovery. Whatever goes in, goes out. There's no profits for, that if you had a privately owned utility, what have you. And just to summarize the people, totally appreciate the council's input on making sure that we have the direction, the resources to make these priorities happen. And people's multiple. Our community engagement, I think the team's done a great job in the last year starting to, or they've been doing over decades, but I think there was an amplified of going to association meetings, having the plant tours last week or so. I think the Cub Scouts were here. I think every quarter we have community meetings, so we've done good with that. But there's so much community engagement opportunities that we need to further, expand on. And customer service, what sort of additional training that we can provide to staff that contact customers on every day. They see our bill. 57,000 people see the bill every month. And then you probably got a couple thousand interactions just with, out in the field. So we got a couple thousand opportunities for physically interacting with our customer base, or your constituents, our constituents, and also we touch them every month sending a bill. And that's important to make sure they get value out of that. Employee engagement, which ties together how do we recruit, train, technical staff, whether it's operators, mechanics, pipe fitters, engineers. Not so simple. We're not in this major metropolis that has big universities and other industries to pull people that have technical backgrounds, and that's a struggle. And we'll continue to look at innovative ways to do that. Operational efficiencies, we've changed some manual process to electronic, plenty of opportunities of that with our asset management system and what have you that we need to develop. I think the next one's really big, and Lauren and I are talking, and more with the team. The employee engagement and collaboration mentioned there's a couple thousand touch points every single month, and that is essential to know, and when we do more town halls and what have you. We need to make sure there's career paths for the people here and promotional opportunities and look at our processes, our data, how do we improve it? And for all of us to remember every single day we're here and, to serve the public. And that's a privilege we have here. And so our mission is to deliver, exceptional service and make the citizens' customers a priority. That's kind of it.
Thank you, Brian. Any follow-ups? Yes, Councilman Sullivan.
I just wanted, Brian, thank you very much. You mentioned to me, and you mentioned in the briefing, the scope and the size of what we're doing in the next 5 years. And you were saying in the whole state of Florida, and we're not talking about just other cities or counties same size, but in the whole state of Florida, not depending on size, we're in, what, 3 or 4?
Top 10, 12, 14. You can name them off. Miami, Jacksonville,
I think that's
Toho.
significant to understand the scope and the size of what's coming. And it is complicated, and it is going to be tough.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else, council? Councilman Miller, you had something?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was just going to say thanks for putting this all together. You know, starting to have the full plan in front of us, and now we have to execute. So, you know, thank you for that. And we've got an exciting, 5 years ahead of us to try to revamp this water system. I will say that, in terms of community engagement and those things and things that, we've discussed, at the meeting yesterday, and there's no better community engagement than being able to hold up the water and it be clear and aesthetically pleasing versus, how it is coming out of water treatment plant number one. So I think that will go a long way to changing residents' opinions about the water system. Just that, right? No matter how many town halls we have and tours of the plants and things like that, I think that is the number one kind of liaison between the residents and the water system is what they see coming out of their tap, right? So we changed that, and I think we have the confidence of the residents going forward.
Thank you, sir.
You just corrected me. There's 57,000 or 110,000 touch points every single day when people turn on the tap or flush the toilet, use the shower.
Anything, Vice Mayor?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So I'll piggyback on what Councilman Miller just said. We obviously get, I'm sure all of us see on social media, the comments about yellow, green tinged water. I know you and I have talked about it, Brian, a lot. And unfortunately, even though the water is safe for human consumption, the discoloration of it allows a narrative to be spread amongst our constituency that the water is not safe, which is very unfortunate, and it causes unnecessary concern. What I will say is I think we can do better. I know we can do better. I know that with upgrades and the investments that we are looking to do, it will get better. You and I talked about a timeline yesterday, and I think realistically, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but realistically you said it's going to take probably 18 months.
I said that it would, if we get some quick fix, but I believe it will take tens of millions of dollars and years. And this plan right now with the 50 million is a 3 to 5 year plan. There might be some opportunities that haven't been fully vetted that possibly we can look at under some emergency type procurements and approaches that you might be able to put transmission lines, further utilize plant, if one in the north, water plant 3, utilize some of that membrane technology and folks, and let's study that and move quick to see if we can transfer the use of some very effective plants we have. And we need to look at that. But I don't see that you can, there's anything quicker than 18 months, even using that. I mean, do we do a design build project on a water supply transmission line? Do we, like I said, move that 4.5 million gallon a day increase to 6? We got to figure out what to do to concentrate, but certainly going to be looking at that real hard here in the next month. I agree. It's not good to, there's primary contaminant levels and secondary and color secondary. While it's not enforceable as a primary, it needs to be improved significantly, and that's one of our focuses.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, as a representative of residents, it concerns me from the standpoint of they're paying a lot of money for tinged water, and that's not acceptable. As a resident, I don't want to put my 20-month-old in a bathtub of yellow water, right? I know it's safe, and I bathe them in it every night. But I understand the concern among our residents. I don't think that it helps that there's false information being put out on a daily basis about it not being safe and causing cancer, because that's just not true. But that aside, I do think that we are taking steps now to do better. What I would ask is that the residents recognize, and this was said to me yesterday, Water has not been a priority in this city for many years. Well, it is now. I think your actions show that, our actions show that. Our residents in paying their utility bills are investing in the very system that they are getting their water from. And it's really, really important that we all work together on this and that we are hyper-focused on lowering the cost of living in other areas because we have had to raise these water rates. I implore this council and our staff to recognize that our water is expensive, period. It's expensive. And it is our job to figure out how we're going to make that up in other areas. I am very committed to that. And I also want the residents to know that you and your team are working on this. And I appreciate your entire staff, all of utility, for working on this. But it is going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And as we work to get more communication out to our residents to educate them on the water, I think every year we have presentations about how our water earns awards and things of that nature. I don't want the residents to be super concerned because the water is safe for consumption. Now, I use a filter on my water, but I would use a filter on my water anywhere. I mean, unless I'm drinking it out of some beautiful spring, which we don't have here, that you can drink straight, from, which I would kind of still be concerned probably, if I'm being honest, to do even that. It is what it is. People use filters. It's a pretty normal practice. So I just, I want the communication to be very clear to the residents that it is a priority of ours. We said that when the new council took their seats over a year ago. And as much as painful as it is for me, and I know for the rest of this board, to sign off on a $285 million bond, it is a necessary step. The last thing I'll say is once all of these investments and improvements are made into this system, it will be a very, very valuable system. And you made the comment, Brian, that this is a cost recovery. We don't profit off of this system. Well, a private equity firm will. They will be looking to profit off of our system. And once this system is worth almost $1 billion, there will be people who will want to buy our system from us. So I talked to legal yesterday about the status of an ordinance to protect that from happening. He is working on it. Marcus, correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's being worked on. I just think it's really important that we continue to improve the system, continue to protect the system, and continue to communicate to our residents about what we're doing to make their water better.
Yeah,
Thank you, Brian, for the presentation.
thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, Councilman Gambaro.
I think the vice mayor and Councilman Miller, hit the nail right on the head with regards to our residents' concerns. But to the staff and the team, Brian, you were hired at the right time and at the right place to make a big difference for our residents, and we have full confidence that you and the team are going to do it. And we've got the excellent financial analysis and the financial ninja over there that to help look at opportunities for us to save money and pay down our debt quicker. So I commend all the hard work. We're not there yet, right? We've got to get to April to finally move forward. But
We're working hard, Aline and I.
I would say if there's issues that come up, don't suffer in silence. Come online and let us know so we can help provide guidance and moving forward as we try to get to get this thing kicked off down the road. But great job in prepping and laying out the plans, and you have our full confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from the council? Before I open up the public discussion, this is a significant investment by the city. The majority of this money is going to capacity expansion and sustainability, and it's costly. It's not cheap to live here in Palm Coast, and like we discussed yesterday, my bill, since I've been here 20 years, our bill has doubled in 20 years. But this is a significant, we are over the hump of those major increases of 8%. Now it'll be capped at 4, floored at 4, depending on CPI. But we are doing everything in our city to bring up our existing infrastructure. That's, paramount to our city. Roads, water, quality of life within our city, and we're doing everything we can. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts as a consumer, and it hurts as an elected official having to do this. but we have to take the necessary steps to improve our quality of life and maintain our infrastructure. With that being said, we'll open this up for public comment if we have any. Seeing no one come to the podium, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any closeout comments? Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. Okay, we're going to move on to item 3, Resolution 2026, establishment of a Park and Recreation Advisory Board. Mr. Hurst.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. James Hurst, Director of Parks and Recreation. Today's presentation is the establishment of a Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, or what we like to say is PRAB. So the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, or PRAB, is being proposed as an advisory board to consult with and provide recommendations to City Council, City Manager, and the Parks and Recreation Department. The proposed board would serve as a formal way for community input and professional insight to be shared. Their recommendations would relate to arts, culture, history, recreation, park activities, and open recreational space, and would help align planning efforts with the community needs and city priorities. So why PRAB? Again, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board will serve as a crucial link between the community and local government. The board will establish community representation and input, resident insight and strategic guidance, enhance department resources, support for planning and development initiatives, and improve communication and transparency between the city and the residents. So the main focus for PRAB would be to discuss and provide recommendations on citywide priorities related to arts, culture and history, recreation. We would review initiatives referred to by the City Council or the City Manager. Ensure that we are consistent with our Parks Master Plan that was adopted by the City Council in 2023. Advise on projects and funding opportunities, including public art, park, capital projects, events, and advisory review of grant proposals. We will receive community input and work collaboratively with residents, civic groups, and other government agencies. So just really quick on the membership and structure. It would consist of 7 city residents serving 2-year terms and would be appointed by City Council based on their relevant experience and interest. There would be a chair and a vice chair. The chair would be elected by a majority vote of the board and will preside over the meetings and communicates recommendations. The vice chair, also elected by a majority vote of the board, serves as the chair's absence. We looked at no more than 2 members may reside within the same city council district. And then just kind of the bylaws, procedures, and structures of the advisory board. The meetings will be open to the public and properly noticed. They will follow the standard agenda of business items, staff and board comments, and public comments with minutes recorded. Regular meetings we will look to hold meetings the 4th Wednesday of each month. It will be at the Palm Coast Community Center at 5:30 p.m. Any special meetings may be called at any time by the chair or a direction of 4 board members. And then we would provide at least 7 days advance written notice to the public. And then if we need to cancel meetings, they may be canceled where there is no business or when a majority of members are unable to attend. And then just a little bit more of continued bylaws and procedures. Parks and Recreation staff will prepare agendas, meeting notices, reports, and meeting minutes. Voting, 4 members are required to conduct business. Recommendations are approved by a majority vote. Meetings will be conducted using the Roberts Rule of Order, newly revised. Regular attendance is expected, and then any extended unexcused absence may result in a vacancy. And then joint meetings as well. We added this where PRAB may be able to hold joint meetings with other community boards within Flagler County area when requested or approved with staff coordination as we see as needed. And with just some council actions and next steps. So we would look for council to approve the resolution establishing the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board And then at a further future city council meeting, we would review applications and city council would appoint PRAB members. With that, that's the end of my presentation. I'm here for any questions or concerns.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from the council?
I just have a question and a suggestion, I guess, too, for the council to consider. Why is it that we arrived at 7 board members?
Previously, it was established that through it used to be Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. But so then it sunset, and now we're kind of reestablishing this Parks and Recreation. But I saw it as maybe 7 it could be a bit too much, but allows us to be able to maybe hold more meetings if less people are on the board, if that kind of makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of get the logic there. My concern is being on this council now for over 3 years, getting people to apply for these boards is tough, and then getting them to show up is tough. So with more members, that requires a higher count for a quorum. My suggestion is 5 members, 1 from each district, because I saw that you all wanted to make sure that was spread out, and then maybe appointing an alternate from each district, somewhat like we did the Charter Review Committee. Okay. Or we can say, hey, we'll endeavor, we'll make every effort to have 1 from each district, but have maybe 2 at-large alternates, so that if each one of those 5 members cannot attend or has to step down for whatever reason, we have those at-large alternates that are present, ready to step in. So that would be my only suggestion. I think this is great. I think that as we hopefully vote to put forward this board, that we get TDC involved, and that obviously we keep the county very involved.
Yeah, and that was the whole premises behind the joint meetings with other government agencies other government boards, Parks Master Plan, whole county. So we would, look to work with them and they could work with us. So that was the whole point behind that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Hurst, I'd also, and I think I had a discussion yesterday with council, the city attorney. Can we recruit other people? It's like we have the same people on everything. We need to have fresh ideas, and that's just recruiting people that are.
I have had a few people reach out and ask for are interested in this.
Yeah,
And
one of the main things, you look at age and the demographic of the person that are sitting on these. For something like Parks and Rec, these need to be people with children, young children.
Yep.
Have we reached out to Ms. Purdy
In regards to
being on this board? She always comes and talks about the need for the aquatics.
we can reach out to her.
Let's reach out to her. She seems to be pretty engaged.
I think we have a
I
meeting.
didn't want to forget to. That's a great suggestion.
I think we have a meeting
do need to
coming
reach
up
out
with
to
her too,
because she's emailed probably you all as well. She's emailed me. She comes to the city council meetings, I think, and then people from Elite, people from MAD, those types of folks are who we should really be reaching out to say, hey, come on board and talk to us and engage with us and give us those suggestions. I think you're absolutely spot on, Mayor.
I think someone reached out about a skate park within the city.
Yep.
That's probably someone more younger,
Yep.
that are. So
we have a contact for that as well. Yep.
We need to try to get those people actively involved in the community.
Yeah, I think we just need to be careful if are they specific to one subject or are they looking at the city as a whole? So
Yes. Yes, go right ahead, Councilor.
I do think this is a good idea to reestablish, and I kind of agree with the 5-member idea. I think it makes more sense with and then have alternates as opposed to going to 7. So I would agree with the Vice Mayor on that my experience is that'll better chance of success that way.
So
I'm good with 5 as well.
So we have consensus, 5 members with 2 at-large alternates?
Yeah.
You good with that? Okay. All right. Any further discussion for the council?
I was just going to mention, I like the idea of having, say, district representatives, because I also posed the question the other day about, we have certain boards where it's like, hey, we must have 1 builder and 1 architect and 1. So we want to make sure there's like a breadth of interest being represented here. And so I think who better to advocate for some specific neighborhoods, because parks in general are kind of a neighborhood amenity, right? You know, unless you're forced to, you don't drive from Matanzas to Seminole Woods to use their park. You want park amenities within your area. You want to advocate for what your neighborhood needs or wants are. So I agree with kind of the district representative route versus either just having a bunch of at-larges or having kind of specifics, you know, like somebody that's very into team sports, whereas someone is very into walking and trails and things like that. I think that's probably the better route.
Sir. Anything else from the council? With that, we'll open it up for public discussion. Does anyone have any? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I saw it on the slide, so when you're asking for the members, do they have, is there like a term for them?
Two-year term.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, to the mayor's point, maybe the youth, getting some more youth
Yeah.
on the board. I did see the post about the skate park, and I don't think it's just one area. I think multiple parks need it. I know the one by my house on Rimfire has a small one, so I think that's a big option as well too.
Okay.
Especially. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Allison, did you get her name? Okay, I didn't know if you heard it. Thank you, ma'am. Hold on. Anyone else for public comment? Miss Virginia, you got anything? Yes, sir, go ahead.
I was going to posit that, potentially having maybe a non-voting youth member would be something that,
We you might see this in our quarterly reports. Our awesome staff at the community center, they created with our team aftercare, like a small little teen council. So we could I can talk with them and maybe.
I think having them involved would be good.
Involve that in some way, and we kind of want to expand on this teen council a little bit as well, and work with you guys and work with us, because those are some of the things we've been trying to work on. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Any public comments closed? Anything else from the council? We got the guidance you need, Mr. Duffy?
Just making sure I got what you need is, so making it 5 members, 1 from each district, and 2 adult at-large members. And I'm guessing where this is kind of like how code enforcement is, where those alternate members can attend the meetings. They just will sit there. They won't have a vote or anything like that.
Yes, non-voting. Yeah.
So the non-voting members.
Yes. So this is this considered first read or?
This is a workshop.
Oh, just okay.
You're just getting direction today.
Gotcha. Okay, so you got what you need.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. We're going to move on to Resolution 2026, approving process of transfer of city canal bulkheads. Miss Virginia.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Virginia
Miss Lynn
Smith
Stevens.
and Miss Lynn Stevens, Deputy Director of Stormwater and Engineering, is here with me as well. Today, we're going to be requesting a policy be implemented in order to transfer the city's bulkheads. The bulkheads is the land that's at the end of each canal. Most likely, many of them, are in the C-section. So a little bit of history with regards to the bulkheads. ITT owned the land, as everyone knows, and they transferred the bulkheads to residents, as well as Palm Coast Community Service Corp did once they owned the lands. In 2004, the city acquired the bulkheads from Palm Coast Community Service Corp, and they did transfer some of those bulkheads. And then in 2007, with change in administration, the city retained all the remaining bulkheads. And it's been our process not to transfer these lands, and that we keep them in the public asset. So we've reviewed them, and the team has decided we need a new process in place to transfer to the residents upon request. So the benefits, we're going to go over the process. The process is lengthy, and I hope to get through it very quickly for you. City staff will get a request to transfer the bulkhead from a resident, and the city staff will then go out and perform an inspection to determine if any stormwater feature exists, such as a catch basin, a pipe, the flume, or the swale. If so, the location will then be surveyed by the city to identify where these items are located and verify that they fall within the proposed 20-foot wide easement that we will request to allow access, drainage, and other city uses. City staff will also perform an inspection as to whether the canal end has an existing seawall. If no seawall exists, the city will then donate the land to the property owner that requests it, as long as a 10-foot wide easement from that property owner comes back to the city, and it will revert back in 2 years if the resident has not put in a seawall for the city. So we would have to have them build a seawall within 2 years and also give us that easement as well. However, if a seawall exists, the city will determine the value of the seawall based on its age and/or condition, and the land that will be transferred to the property owner for the value, and will include up to a 10-foot easement as well. If one property owner owns one side of the canal and they want the whole thing, if it's available, we will give a right of first to the other property owner on the other side of the canal. If that person objects and says, no, I don't want it, then that option will go to that existing property owner, the initial property owner that's requested it. City staff will, as I said, contact the adjoining property owner to see if they want to purchase it as well. When I say purchase, I mean transfer. So the options for the bulkhead transfer will take place via a purchase and sale agreement with the city. And we would need to get a 10-foot easement on each side if they both want to purchase it. Otherwise, it would be a 20-foot from the one resident that wants the entire bulkhead. A non-statutory lot reconfiguration will then also need to take place so that the property owner has a compliant property line and lot. So the one he obtains from us will be added to his existing property line. The benefits of transferring the land to the residents will be the resident's property will become larger. The resident will have the ability to maintain and landscape the area at a higher level of service than what the city provides. And it also provides more ability and flexibility for a dock.
I have a question
Sure.
about this slide here. The wording of has the ability to maintain and landscape. So would this piece of land have the same requirements in terms of code as the rest of the residential property? i.e., they have to maintain it in a way that they have to maintain their front yard and their...
Correct.
So it's not ability to maintain, it's a requirement to maintain.
Right.
Okay.
Well, they'll be able to maintain at a higher level of service.
Right, higher than what we
do.
currently provide because we can only get by twice in a year or something like that. They would have the requirement to mow it during the summer often and less often during the winter and things like that. But they would still have to meet the basic guidelines that we require residences to meet, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't know if any wording, I know the same wording is in the exhibit that's referenced by the resolution, but any wording needs to be changed to just say that it has to be maintained. It's not, you have the ability to maintain it, because I just want to make sure that we don't have a conflict 4 years from now where someone has stopped maintaining, these pieces of property that they've acquired.
Required to maintain?
Yeah, something to that effect.
Sure.
As per code or whatever. And that's all I had. Thank you.
The benefits to the city will be for the resident to construct a seawall to stabilize the shoreline and protect the integrity of the saltwater canal. The cost will be borne by the resident. The maintenance of the land and the seawall shifts to the resident. The taxable value increases, generating additional revenue for the city. The city's access will remain in place in a new 20-foot wide easement that will be required as well.
Do we have any, so some have a seawall and some do not?
Correct.
And what was was it something where the city saw it eroding, so we put up a seawall, or?
I think the seawalls were existing when the city acquired the bulkheads.
Okay, so they're pre-existing seawall. I was just wondering why there's some that have it and some that don't, and and what that means. Okay, thanks.
That's a bigger issue. The ones that don't have seawalls, the vacant lots, because they're causing damage to the other property.
Well, yeah, and that's, I think there's another conversation about that as well, that we need to work on that in terms of those unimproved lots, not these bulkhead lots or pieces of parcels of property.
So this is the location map of the existing 20 or so properties that currently have the bulkhead that would be available to transfer to the resident that adjoins the property. The little red boxes, it's hard to see, but those are the bulkheads, and then the yellow are the residents that surround it. Currently, we have 3 requests in from residents to purchase the bulkheads. So city staff does request that council adopt the resolution approving the process to transfer city canal bulkheads.
Thank you, Virginia. Anything else from the council?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, out of curiosity, have they communicated like what drove them to say, "Hey, can I buy this piece of land"?
Over the years since I've been here, I have received multiple requests from property owners. Some are the same existing property owners that want to buy the canal head. They want to improve it. They want their land to be stabilized as well. And without that land, they can't do it.
Okay, just wondering. Thanks.
Just a few legal things that that I spoke with Marcus about yesterday. In paragraph 4.16, the second smaller paragraph there, it does say that the property is being sold as is. With my real estate attorney hat on, I know that that is virtually worthless language because there's been a Supreme Court case out of Florida that basically says, doesn't matter if you say a property is sold as is, if there are certain issues, you have to disclose them if you know about them. So I had suggested explicit language that says the buyer expressly waives any non-disclosure claims against the seller so that there's nothing that can be brought against us in the future. And then the other thing is it says that the paragraph will survive closing for a period of 6 months. However, the statute of limitations to sue for breach of contract is 5 years. So I had suggested that we change that to 5 years so that if there happens to be an attempt to sue for non-disclosure for whatever reason, that statute of limitations has told and they cannot sue us for that. So those are just my 2 kind of legal contract suggestions.
All right, thank you. Everyone, we have consensus for those changes? Yes. Any more comments from the council? Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. Anyone have any comments concerning the transfer of bulkheads? See, no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any follow-ups? You got the guidance you need, Marcus? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Virginia, Miss Lynn Stevens.
I know. That was an easy one.
One of the hardest working women in Palm Coast. We're going to go to our final public participation. Ma'am, do you have anything? You're the lone survivor. I had to ask. We'll bring it back to the dais. We'll go with a discussion of city council not on the agenda. I would like to say to the rest of the council, I apologize for Ms. Duarte. I did not see her come back up to the podium. That is not a norm in this chamber, and I did not notice her. I would have cut that off a bit quicker.
Hey, thank you for doing that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we have next on the 20th. We have a large agenda, so everybody pack a lunch. We have 14 items on the agenda for the 20th at the business meeting at 9 a.m. Yes, sir. The one ordinance on there is the food trucks. Hopefully, they've ironed all that stuff out, and we can move forward with that one. That's all I have. I don't have anything on here. I just want to make sure I apologize for that little outburst. That's not normal in this chamber. Anything else from the rest of the council?
I have something, Mr. Mayor. So I attended the executive session for TPO and kind of working with traffic staff on current priorities. Just wanted to let you guys know what I'm working on. We've been in discussion for probably a year now about trying to get some sort of signalization at the Matanzas interchange of 95. So I've kind of hunted down what the process is. And so where we're at right now, we've basically been approved for a need via traffic count. And so that qualifies us. That's just the base level qualification. Then past that, there has to be an interchange operational analysis, which is a federal analysis that has to occur, and typically the timelines for these are about 6 months. So I'm working with the offices for our congressman as well as our state rep and senator to try to see what they can do to speed that up in any way. You know, I don't know how much opportunity they're going to have to make it go faster, whether there is any leeway, but we're certainly going to try to get that done because that's the next step. Past that, it's design and funding, and then, you know, breaking ground. So there's still, unfortunately, some time that's going to be needed to get some headway on this, but we're working towards it. The other thing, and I'm not sure if this has been alleviated yet, is that, and also I'll be working with Senator Leak and Representative Greco on this, but Old Kings North Phase 2, we have our final design in, and we're waiting for FDOT approval of that design before we can bid out. So we're waiting on that. They've had it for longer than what is normal, so we're going to be asking them to return that as quickly as possible, and I don't know if that's been alleviated in the last week since I've talked to staff about it. And then finally, the next focus would be on State Road 100, and the 6 laning of it is focusing on, again, our state representatives helping out with the FDOT district to try to work and make sure that PD&E study for that is in the next 5-year work plan, which would be, they'll be working on that kind of next summer, or this summer, coming in and then announcing it at the end of the year. So just making sure that some of that funding is in there for that next step of State Road 100 to get the planning, the permitting, all those things kind of moving forward, because right now it's on our list, it's high on the priority list, but it's not funded in any way. So first step is to get that PD&E going. So that's what I'll be working on in the short term for our roads going forward. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Thank you for that. That's awesome. So 2 things. I listened to the county workshop yesterday, and they had a lot on their agenda. They tried to pull a City of Palm Coast meeting. It went over 6 hours in their workshop. It's kind of like we reversed roles here, which I'm not complaining about. 2 things that they talked about that I wanted to bring up to this council. The first is there was a discussion on health insurance, and I know during this last budget cycle, you all got to experience it, but even the year before that as well, we've seen some very steep increases to our health insurance costs. They talked about the possibility of consolidating our plans for maybe some cheaper costs, some cost savings. City and county, yeah. Now, I know there was some discussion about how that probably wouldn't work with school board, how it may not work with sheriff's office, but I feel like the types of individuals covered by the city and the county insurance policies are probably pretty comparable. So I would imagine that it's at least something to consider and look at. So I would ask for consensus from this council just to have staff reach out to county staff to say, hey, you know, is this possible? Is this something that we can maybe do an analysis of as we look to fiscal year 27 to see if there's maybe some cost savings to the health insurance? Because obviously, I won't say all the time, but generally speaking, the more you have on a plan, the cheaper you can make it for everybody. So I would like us to consider that so that we can maybe do something for cost savings for the health insurance plan.
I have no problem with them reaching out. I do think, and I've already mentioned this to the city manager, coming into this budget cycle, last year, we didn't react fast enough and I know Councilman Gambaro was opposed to it, but considering those health savings plans, because that was, I think they mentioned, the experts that sat right there said that was over a $2 million savings for the city. So we need to make sure we lean forward and look at that in a timely manner so we can make those decisions before we're at the deadline for the budget, just to keep that in everyone's mind, up front in your mind. You had anything else? Well, I have no problem consensus, talking to them and
I
discussing.
was just going to say, I think it's a great idea because we look at spreading the risk, right, across
Right.
a broader population. What I don't agree with is the school board because they've got a different problem set. You know, even from my time on the school board, I mean, a school teacher with family pays $2,300 a month premium just to have the plan. So they're essentially working for free. And so that level of risk there, I just think it's
No, I agree. I think just city and county.
county. I support that.
Yeah, and I was going to add, I as well support that. Having options is good. The only caveat I would put to that is, we have to weigh that against the risk of being able to make our own decisions. Once we're kind of looped into a plan with everybody, then it's not just our decision, it's everybody's decision, how we want our benefits to go or move going forward. So just want to make sure that we're remaining flexible enough that we can control our own destiny for the benefits that the city employees receive.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're always going to have a risk there, but I think that, there can be something, I think we all generally have the desire to provide, and you can hear it just from the county meeting as well. They have a desire to provide a good health insurance plan to their employees. I think we've all expressed the same desire. So
I agree that the employee type, so to speak, everything's fairly comparable, right, in terms of county and city. So we should be kind of moving in the same direction. I just want to make sure that we understand the risk that if they decide to go in a different direction, then things change all of a sudden.
What, did you have something, Councilman?
Yeah, just, this came up back when I was on the board at the county to consolidate. And, they do have their own medical facility out there. That became a problem when we looked at consolidation. So this was looked at maybe 3-4 years ago pretty carefully, and the problem was that part of it. How would their plan, how would our joining with them, how would we coordinate on something like that? We don't have our own little separate facility here. Would we have to build one, that kind of thing? It wasn't as easy a consolidation as maybe people envision.
You might expect.
yeah, no, and I don't think it's an easy consolidation. I think though that as we are facing very steep increases in the insurance, we just need to explore anything possible to try to get those costs down. If it's not something that's feasible, then it's not something that's feasible. I can appreciate it being looked at 3 and 4 years ago, but I even in the last 4 years, the insurance landscape has just changed.
Yeah,
So,
I don't have any problem looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
So we're good with that? Anything else, Vice Mayor?
yeah, just really quickly. So there was also talk about the joint planning interlocal agreement. I think we've had discussion with staff on the ILA that we're entering into with the county to talk about joint planning efforts, because so many of the decisions that each of us makes directly affects one another. And I think sometimes we feel like we don't have any say in what's going on in the county and vice versa. Just a couple things that I would like to make sure are in the ILA. To me, it doesn't really have much teeth. It's just kind of this document that says, hey, it's kind of a handshake deal, right? I mean, we're agreeing to play nice in the sandbox. And when something comes up that's going to affect the other, we're going to reach out to you and we're going to talk about it. And that's great. And we should be doing that anyways, without the necessity of an ILA. But I would ask staff to maybe speak with county staff about some specific timelines that go into those discussions. In other words, for example, let's say something, an annexation request or something to that effect comes into the county that they know, or rezoning or whatever, that they know is going to directly affect any type of infrastructure or whatever with the city, whether it be a road, it be water, whatever it may be, that they have a certain amount of time to then notify the city of that request coming into them, and vice versa. If we have something that comes into us, we know it's going to directly affect the county in a big way, that we have a certain amount of time. And then there's a review process that takes place, and then the respondent, so the responding party, has to then get back to them with their comments by a certain amount of time. And the reason I bring this up is there was specifically a development that came before the county over there in Seminole Woods. there was some miscommunication. I guess the county reached out to the city, said, hey, we'd like your comments on this. It went, from my understanding, it didn't go to a direct mailbox. It went to a more general mailbox. It kind of got lost in the shuffle with all the holidays. The city didn't really have time to get their comments back. And so there was just a lack of communication there. And I think it caused some angst amongst the planning board and also the county board with regards to moving forward with this specific request that came through from an applicant. And I think if we can eliminate things like that in the future, we should try. And we have the opportunity to do that right now with this ILA. So I don't know exactly what that structure would look like, but I think that if we can all hold each other accountable with, hey, we know for a fact when something comes in, they're going to give us notice within, and I'm just throwing out a random number, 10 days, and then we have 10 days to get our comments back. That gives everybody expectations, right? And it also gives the applicants that are applying expectations, right? Expectations as well. So I'd ask for that. Also, I want pressure put on Bunnell. Bunnell, to me, what they have done is abysmal. I'm just going to be very frank. I think some of the rezonings that they have done and the change of their landscape that is coming is going to be detrimental to our infrastructure in a few ways. And I don't feel like the city of Palm Coast has really had much of a say, if at all, in that. I know not a single person on that board reached out to me. Did you hear from anybody, Mayor?
No, ma'am.
And what they are doing, I have people reach out to me in our neighborhoods that are right there at the line of Palm Coast and Bunnell, and they are freaking out. And they go to those meetings, and they are blown away at the dismissiveness that they as Palm Coast residents feel, even though they're being directly affected by what Bunnell is doing. I am disgusted, to be quite frank. And we have no say over it. We're silent. Or I should say we are silenced. We have been silenced. And to me, that's an unacceptable position to be in. I know we had some representatives from the county go to a few meetings and speak, and I know I've had residents of Bunnell reach out to me and say, hey, is there anything you can do? And I've spoken to staff about it, and I know staff has gotten with their staff and voiced concerns, but I just don't feel it's enough. So I would like to put pressure on Bunnell to enter into a similar agreement. I commend the county and our staff for being willing to enter into this type of ILA, and I am formally asking Bunnell to consider the same.
Anything else? That's it. Thank you. We have had that one project over there that abuts, I forgot the name of it, but we've had residents with issues, walls cracking because of them earth moving along that perimeter.
We have flooding issues as well, which, to your point, and sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor, but I think that we should also talk about, some of the requirements in terms of planning. While we changed our technical manual to only allow a certain height between two homes, the height between two city lines, there's no requirement for that, and so that's resulting in damage to some of our residents' property as well. And I can't do anything about Bunnell deciding to build houses 10 feet higher than the houses right across the street in Palm Coast. And so that's an issue. So that's another thing we need to talk about as well, how that works in terms of multiple things, in terms of building code and things like that. There was another, I don't know legally in terms of what we could do, but properties that face a compulsory annexation and impact fees and things of that nature, is that something that we can build into the ILA? Is that legal? We've had, fortunately, a couple properties or landowners be ahead of this and do the right thing by, saying we're going to do this first and then pay the impact fees so that we're paying Palm Coast impact fees, but they're not required to, so to speak. So I don't know if there's any way to come to an agreement with county or any adjacent cities for things like that as well, to ensure that they're doing the right thing there. And not kind of skirting the potential impact fees of Palm Coast by doing things within county and then moving into Palm Coast.
Yeah, I don't, the compulsory annexation, I think there needs to be further discussion on that because I don't believe there is a such thing. I think we've been told that. The reality is if a development doesn't want to annex into the city for water, they pay the 25%. They don't have to annex. We've been told they do, and it's false, and we've been lied to, and that really irritates me. That's a different subject. But I want to make sure that we're not adding something that isn't factually, but I get what you're saying, and I agree with the concept.
And it still comes into planning too, right?
Correct.
Like, do we want this character of business or usage of this land to be within Palm Coast, things like that? Or even if it's not in Palm Coast, it's still directly adjacent to Palm Coast,
Yeah.
still affects our residents, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I agree. I mean, that topic generally should be considered. So.
You good? What you got on that?
Not on that, I'll just say that as Benel has increased its size and annexed in, there were, even with the county, there were not good agreements made because, for instance, you take all this land, but they still expect the county to maintain the roads. The county doesn't maintain our roads, and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of things that happened with Benel that could get out of control very quickly with what they're taking on. I have one additional item, just for comments,
Go ahead.
and that is, I was not here last year when you guys went to Tallahassee. And is there any kind of pre-briefing or pre-meeting so that when we get there, we know what we're going to be emphasizing and talking about or anything like that?
An itinerary specifically.
Well, the Southern Group normally provides that for us.
Well, but we should be talking about
Yeah, I agree. I think
if we can.
we only have, sorry, I'm not speaking into the mic. We only have the one optional workshop on January 27th, and then we've got the business meeting on February 3rd, and then we're in Tallahassee. So really the only time to have a presentation, unless we add the workshop, is at that February 3rd business meeting.
Yeah, right.
And I think it is important that we be public facing before we go to Tallahassee about, the priorities we're going to advocate for.
The 3rd of February only has 3 items on it right now.
So maybe we have a presentation, city manager.
We're already working on a schedule. Deputy City Manager's already over that.
I'd also like to see, I know we get a little bit of it. We get some from the Southern Group. We have Florida League of Cities that also advocates and kind of educates us on legislation that potentially changes the landscape. Something like that as part of our package as well of, potential bills that have been introduced that are in committee or whatever that, are detrimental to the city and home rule and things like that, so that we know what to say. Hey, under no circumstance does Palm Coast support these 6 bills to our representatives, so they know that if they vote for them, yes, when they come back, we're going to ask questions about it, right? Because that happened with a couple things, obviously, some of the things, there's like premises of, oh, well, it's disaster relief and things like that. But the ultimate functional result is a limited home rule in terms of planning. So we want to make sure that we're telling them that before they vote on things rather than after. So if we could get some analysis on, the stuff in the pipeline that we can talk to our reps about.
So we're good with adding that to the 3rd, February 3rd? Everybody's good with
Yeah, I
that,
think that's
Lauren?
great.
Lauren, you think you can?
Just as clarification, you're looking for a presentation, or can I put together an itinerary and schedule for you? I can confirm what you've all told me of who you'd like to meet with, just so that I'm clear. I did already speak to our lobbyist, and they are putting together those schedules and meetings. You won't see anything on your calendar because the representatives do not get their calendar until a couple of days prior, but we are going to go ahead and block off some of those holds. So I have your request to meet with Mr. Greco, Mr. Leak, Mr. Sullivan. You mentioned Mr. Wright, Senate.
Possibly just.
Yes, sir. And then agencies, you've requested FDOT, FDEP, Doge. Mr. Miller, you requested to meet with Doge a couple of weeks ago. And Ms. Pontieri, you requested to meet with Simpson. And I have Laura working on anything related to vapes and that initiative that you have as well. Mr. Gambaro, you had suggested meeting with Jason Broder, and then we all met with Mr. Alvarez last year, and in relation to this year's request, talking about dispatchers as first responders. We have your legislative priorities being printed on a rack card. Several of our stakeholders who will be in Tallahassee have requested that information so that they can pass it out as well. So communications is working on having that ready. We are not going during FLC week, so we are going on our own. I did ask Laura, our lobbyist, if there is anything going on at the Capitol while we're there. So I'm just waiting for that feedback. So I was just going to compile all of that in an itinerary for you in advance. Is there anything else that you're requesting?
If we could have, like, the big hit bills that are coming forward, if you can reach out to the lobbyist and get us something that, so we have an idea of what they're looking at. Because I think 180 got bombed. Really, I do. You know, it's
180 became 180 at 10 p.m. the
yeah,
night before it voted.
and we're paying for it, and we're litigating because of that. So
But there's other stuff too that
Yeah.
was known about, and stuff that's tried every single year, and it's, you know, they get closer and closer to passing every year. So we need to be able to tell them.
I think that, and I also think our priorities need to be put in just a presentation to council, you know, first thing at the business meeting. We've had those types of presentations before where, you know, so our residents know exactly what we're prioritizing. It's really important, I think, that they're aware of that.
So I'll use the same presentation that we used whenever you adopted. So we'll just refresh, just for the public's transparency, what those are.
Yeah, I think that's important.
And you said we're going to meet with Alvarez as well, or try to schedule some time.
Yes, sir, he's on the list.
I'll take care of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you sent it to me, but he has introduced legislation, one that I'm aware of, to consolidate. So to require that the county only has one dispatch center, because currently you have multiple cities as well as the county have different dispatch centers. So that's one thing. But also I think he has legislation to treat them as first responders as well, that he's introduced in the past as well. So that's a good person to talk to that's going to be sponsoring all this and putting this forward to try to forward one of our legislative priorities.
Yeah, so they kicked off today, right? Has the governor
Yes.
done his state of the state yet? What time
I
is
just
that?
know that they kicked off today.
Okay. I heard on the radio they kicked off there. Did you have anything else, Mr. Sullivan? Councilman Gambaro?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of items. So for next week's meeting, just wanted to highlight that we'll be having the members of the Affordable Housing Committee coming to brief us on bylaws and then the standards report. Also, some recommendations mixed into there. But it was a pretty robust discussion at the last county advisory housing meeting, and it should be a good report. Important topic for all of us and for all of our residents as the Vice Mayor said, everything's getting more expensive, and we're trying to make sure we sustain good quality of life here. Last week, I attended the Board of Directors meeting for the Northeast Florida Regional Council. And Vice Mayor, to your point, they just got a $400,000 federal grant to study fish and wildlife, review the waterways, the study with our military installations, a readiness review. Regional Reliance Entity Project, that's an FDEP grant that'll be completed by the end of June. We had the recent study, the Flagler Adaptation Plan and Resiliency Study that was completed. That's all going to be coming back to us now. And so I'm going to, with your guys' permission, I'm going to look and see what other grants from a waterway perspective we could probably leverage into what Brian's doing in the utility department, just as another avenue, because they seem to have it figured out on how to land grants for the regional council. And then I'm happy to report that our new city manager, Mr. Mike McLaughlin, will be joining the 2026 Regional Leadership Academy as part of the new program, and he'll have an opportunity to benchmark and go around to the other counties. So we're excited for that opportunity and continue his in-depth onboarding process. But that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from the council? City Attorney?
Nothing for me, sir. Just happy to be back.
It was cold up there, right?
Yes, 32 degrees every day.
Just so everyone knows, the attorney was up in DC for his drill or whatever they call it in the Air Force.
Military orders, sir.
City manager, items not on the agenda. Do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's a quick follow-up on the health insurance question. So yes, it's just scheduled early in the year, right now for March. So we will be early in the calendar year, and of course, as well as the budget season. And we'll be, I'll be ensuring follow-up as appropriate on our public participation comments as well. We'll be working with the E-team tomorrow in our meeting, our weekly meeting, on the deliverables that you were talking about today, and your item is not on the agenda.
All right.
Good to go. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Any follow-ups, any final words, anything?
I got one last thing. I just wanted to make sure, I don't know if we manage any funds in terms of, some things that we've seen nationally in terms of fraud and managing funds, in terms of, childcare and things like that. I don't know if the city manages any funds as part of any federal grant programs in regards to that, but I just wanted to see if we could get consensus that we can get that information back to us to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in terms of the city and managing these funds appropriately.
I have no problem with that. With Jackie, there's some funds.
I'm not even sure. I just want to make sure that if we are managing funds, that we get some
county.
oversight over
Might
them.
be something.
I'm talking about as far as, like, yeah, what can explore that? Can you check that out, city manager? All right. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.